all the participants to this panel, which is on this a key theme for this conference theme, because, sorry. Ouais, c'est bon, merci. So a key panel for this conference theme, because the title of this panel is Technology, Organization, People, Tryptic in Industry 4.0. So first of all, I present my panelists, Guy-André Boy, which is a professor at Central Supélec and STR Institute of Technology. So he specialized in human system integration and human-centered design, and has a long experience in collaboration with Airbus, NASA, and so on. We have the long list this morning, but I will not repeat it, but I think you do not forget it. He's the leader of the FlexTech University Chair. And Abdelaziz Bouraz is a professor in computer science and engineering and on leave in Qatar University, where he starts as an ICT scientific chair and then as director of the Office of Research Support, and led several international projects on ICT for PLM in collaboration with industry, standardization institutions. And his current research deals with the application of artificial intelligence and blockchains for PLM and supply chains. And Bruno Villain, which is the only professional, I would say, industrialist, is a director of ADTP, which is an adapted company that employs mostly people with disabilities. So Bruno Villain is particularly concerned by technology at the service of people, helping people with disabilities through technology, cobots, augmented reality, camera vision, and so on. So at the end, I am Thomas Roverdi, and I am sociologist here at Grenoble Institute of Technology. And I conduct a varied research on energy policy, but also on the digitalization of industrial organization and work. So the first theme of the debate of this panel will be about the myths and the reality of the fourth industrial revolution. So I think you all have in mind the discourse of the industrial revolution. Discourse defends the idea, the vision of an industry as self-managed cyber-technical system. So it was the main vision that was defended by this discourse, especially at the beginning. So before talking about the reality of the change, if it's a revolution or not, I would like to just discuss this vision of industrial revolution. So by using the expression of industrial revolution, this discourse introduces a strong analogy with previous industrial revolution. It's a serious thing. We all know how important have been this previous industrial revolution for your living condition, for the working activities. And so this expression can create a very strong anticipation. It has been made for that. The problem with this discourse is that it gives a strong positive anticipation related to technical performance, but as a lot of anticipation, it is also related to kind of symmetric anticipation, threatening imaginary of an industry without workers, a humanity dominated by robots and digital systems. So this discourse of the fourth industrial revolution can produce fear and resistance. That's why the discourse has been adapted and taken more and more into account human issue, as you can see here. So with this declaration of the World Economic Forum. So you can see how far it insists on human integration. Fourth industrial revolution is more than just technology-driven change. It's an opportunity to help everyone, including leaders, policymakers, peoples, and to harness converging technologies in order to create inclusive and human-centered future. So we need to insist on human dimension after first, perhaps, vision of technology-driven change. So my question first will be, what do you think about this vision? So this vision of Industry 4.0. Do you think that this vision is a positive one, is encouraging, associated with progress? Or do you think that is this vision, this idea of Industry 4.0 is threatening and associated with human regression? So that's a question for you, the public. So what do you think about that? Is it a good discourse, a good vision for supporting technology? So if you think that is yes, it's a good discourse for supporting this technology, or do you think that's, so who is thinking that it's a good discourse for supporting technology? Who thinks that it's not a very good discourse for supporting technology development? The idea of, oh, you are a little bit, you are all in between. My question is only on the discourse. You see what I mean? It's only, do you think that it's help or it doesn't help? So, but I will ask this question to the member of the panelists. So do you think this discourse help or not help? Do you think that this discourse about Industry 4.0 and which kind of discourse we can add or change arguments we can associate with this technological change in order to make it perhaps more desirable or more acceptable? And so that's a question. Who wants to answer?
So before answering this question, we have to understand what we mean by Industry 4.0, because you're talking about the discourse behind Industry 4.0, but what do we mean by this? So I tell you what I understand, and then I will make a judgment on this. What I understand is that computers are everywhere today, even in things that we don't see. And then that influences our behavior. You see, when you go to train station, to airports, to even in the street, I mean, almost everyone in France or in many countries use smartphones. So they are connected, but we were connected before that, but in a different way. So in fact, we have, in a sense, we discretize our lives. We cut the things into pieces, because if you're not connected with your smartphone today, and you're doing a job, then you are handicapped. Sorry, it's not the handicap you're going to talk about, but so that's a big difference with the past. So the connectivity is now somehow based on computers and electronics stuff. So that's the first thing. Another thing that is more, I talked this morning about modeling and simulation. I think this is great. We could take into account human factors very early during the design of a system today. Because of that, that was not really possible before. Even in aeronautics, where we have a long tradition in simulators, we could simulate pieces of an aircraft, but not the whole aircraft. And not the whole aircraft with the traffic, and not the whole aircraft with the traffic and the airports. Today we can do that. I had a lab in Florida, and we were connected already with the simulator and designing new systems. We could put pilots in the loop very early in the design. So that makes something great, I think. But the problem is, as I said this morning, is this issue of tangibility. In fact, the more you get into the virtual, in the digital, the more you are in this world that is fabricated, that is artificial, in fact. And then, the physics is still there. We need to take that into account. If you neglect physics, it's going to come back to your face very quickly. That's the thing. So, if we talk, I'm now an academic, and I teach students. And then, if you teach only this part, and you neglect the tangible stuff, that. I think it's going to be a big issue, and this is related to involvement, implication, doing stuff. I remember I talked with one of my colleagues at MIT once, and I say, well, what kind of people do you hire in your lab? And he said, sophisticated bricoleurs. The term bricoleur in French. You know what it means? So the people who try and make things, that's the thing. So that's my reaction to industry. But I think Industry 4.0 is almost finished. I hope that we're going to switch to Industry 5.0, where the human will be part of that.
Yeah, I think. So I would like to ask a question, perhaps to Bruno first. About the social meaning of this technology. So, what do you think? Do you think that there is a positive? There could be a positive social meaning for this technology, for example, the people we are working with, or if this technology is always associated, could be associated with fear or negative feelings.
Yeah. Thank you. For myself, first of all, revolution is a revolution. We have no choice. We need to go further. So I prefer to see in the revolution what are the opportunities, the potential opportunities to go on. The first one for me is the possibility for the disabled people to be part of the society, part of the society inside the city. We are now all connected. And it's very interesting, the technology lets them the possibility to be connected, for example, in the metro, to know where they are, where is the next danger, so they can anticipate a lot of things, for example. Technology also, in terms of production, it's very interesting for me, and we have the possibility in this revolution to provide new technology and to invest on the workstation. It's very important because when you invest on a workstation for the disabled people, they see that they are important. They are important because you invest on them, you invest on the workstation, they are considerate, and at that time they say thank you, because they can consider that they have as an ordinary people, and that's very important. So for me, we have the two possibilities, either to do more and to integrate them more into society, and the secondly is to provide them the proof that they are important, and we can invest on them, and we can go on. That's all.
Okay, thank you. At Deletis, you are also working on technology that has a very strong social meaning, because you are working on blockchain, and with blockchain is associated with a specific kind of society, of organization, which is a flat organization, horizontal self-organization. And do you think that this social imaginary associated with the technology, is it positive? Don't you think that there is more and more questioning about this vision of self-organization, for example? If we see the speculation with Bitcoin, for example, it's specific. I think it could be a case of when the self-organization became wrong.
I think, yes, you are right. What generated such imagination, let's say, is mainly the public and highly distributed blockchain applications, like the fintech, where it's really highly distributed and, as you said, so no one knows the other, and then, yes, speculation could be there, and we have seen some examples. And I'm working on the other blockchain, which is the blockchain for the industry, which is mainly private blockchain, where we know the limits, people can know each other's. We are not talking about millions of people. When we are talking about the blockchain of the supply chain, for example, probably we are talking about hundreds of people, so they know, and then they can vote, they can decide together, etc. So I mean that there is something which is really imagination when it comes to the highly distributed blockchain applications, but there are also some realistic blockchain for the industry, and this is what we need today, because why the industry is really going there to secure mainly the information, the logistics information, the documents that you are sending using PLM and ERP systems, etc. No one can guarantee for you that your document that you are sending or the data that you are sending is secure today. No one, no editor, no vendor can guarantee that, because you have different levels where the hacking can play, the network, the system, the software. So using the blockchain is one of the ideas chaining the information to secure the information. So I think there is a difference, and somehow when it comes to the Bitcoin, for example, because you gave this as an example, for me the speculation is not linked to the technology itself, but the way people are thinking about the technology. So the speculation is because the use of the technology is still not mature. It's not stable. You know, the guy who created this Satoshi thought about this speculation, and he said that we need to have enough Bitcoin in the market to be sure that people can do what they want. However, we need to limit it, to limit this speculation. You know, if you take any money, the physical money, let's say, the bank, they are always baking it on kind of gold, for example, or things like that, to be sure that it's linked to something tangible. We are talking about tangibility. Yeah. So the Bitcoin, you have nothing tangible somehow. No, so people can imagine a lot of things, and the only way to limit this is to stabilize it. And Satoshi thought about it, and he said that when we reach 21 million Bitcoins, we stop everything. Not a single Bitcoin could be created. I think that day, it will be probably in 2, 3, 5 years, I'm sure that the Bitcoin itself will be stable and the way of using it, etc., will change a little bit. So it's a matter of maturity and stability of the technology and the use, no more.
Yeah, but a stability that will be produced by social behaviors and not organization in this case. It's much more about a kind of learning, global learning dynamic. You think about that? Okay.
Yeah.
Without any organization. So after having talked about the myth and imaginary associated with technology, let's talk about a little bit about reality of it. So I will question a little bit how far the Industry 4.0 is a revolution or is an incremental change? Where are the disruption and for whom? And I question that because I have visited some production units recently, which quite old production units, and they have introduced a program of Industry 4.0 of smart industry. And I visited the unit production, and I see computer device and so on, but I see also a lot of papers and a lot of documents and physical documents and a lot of elements that were not totally digitalized. So I'm wondering in which context do we have this change? Is it as big as it was expected, and in the industrial context, and is it also always efficient? So in this same company, I'll have a lot of discussion about what was the objectives, and I saw that a large part of the objectives was much more visibility than efficiency. Because managers was looking for visibility by adopting technology, much more than looking for efficiency for a large part of them. So my question is about the reality of the revolution. Is it as big as it is presented? How far do you think that in many cases it's more incremental than a revolution? So, who wants to answer?
I think we need more than ever sociologists and anthropologists in this society to analyze what is going on, because we don't know really. I mean, I don't know, to model that. I mean, what, because our activities, our behaviors changed over the years because of the digital media. In good ways. For handicap, for instance, it's a good thing. For space, we can go to the moon now. We have done that without this big technology before, as a matter of fact. But we have to make a distinction between what we master and what we don't master. In fact, for instance, the washing machine in the early days of automation was extremely good, Imagine, I remember in the countryside, I remember this old people washing the clothes, in the cold river. I remember that. So, it's because I'm older than you. But today we don't question that. This is part of our lives, But this is mature today. This is really mature. We don't know how to do it without that. That's the thing. But there are things that we don't master yet. And we are in the middle of the river, if you want, crossing. We are not on the other side, this or the other bank, this. So what should we do to better understand what we're doing? Because it's not only designing new technologies, it's actually first using them, operating them, but also trying to better understand the repercussions all over the society. Because sometimes you don't see the side effects of these new things. The reason I started this research on tangibility is because of that. Because it's not only a question of grasping things physically, but also understanding what we're doing. This is what I call figurative tangibility. So my take on this is we should develop more studies in where we are going. So that's one thing. And the second thing is I think we need to look at the evolution of this society through the first studies I was talking about, in order to better understand what the human being needs really. Because today we are also creating activities that are extremely artificial. Do we need really this smartphone? I come back to that. That's of course the answer is yes, because if you miss your smartphone, if you lose it, you're totally lost. But that's not really. Do you think this is real? That's okay.
No, I think from my side, I really agree with you about mastering the technologies. I may add other thing, which is the affordability, the availability. If we take just the example of the COVID pandemics, we learned something very important, that more or less half of the planet had the issue of accessing to technologies. We have seen many examples about SMEs, about schools, about and not only in the poor countries, even in countries in Europe, things like that. Just because people were not ready for that in terms of really affordability, because they are old people, or I don't know, or also in poor countries they cannot buy this. So a lot of people were really excluded from the technology because a problem of affordability. And the other point is exactly what you said in my mind, which is the easily mastering such technology. So let's say a lot of people in the planet had another problem. They can access to the technology, they used it, but no one can guarantee for them about their privacy, about their data protection, about etc. etc. No one can guarantee for you that what you did during this period, all the data is protected, things like that. So from one side, we have a real problem of affordability, which is led us to real digital divide. So we are again talking about this. It's unfortunate in 2022. But from the other side, it led us to real problem of cybersecurity. So we can use, but no one can guarantee for me where is my data and if I'm protected. So I agree with you when you say that mastering is a real problem. We can use any technology, but if we have a real problem of cybersecurity, my company can disappear in 2 days.
Good introduction. Yeah.
Just to add some point regarding the production manufacturer I am. For me, the technology, we have already a lot of technology that we can master, that we can implement in the factory. That's very important. And we have already plenty of games to implement. For the revolution is already in our factory. But the real revolution is the database. With this new, it's a new way of technology. It's a new key value for our factory. It's a new key value of our company. We have to master our database, and the technology should help us to master this, and we will have a very key value for our company.
Yeah, I think many revolution has been done already in a way. So sometimes the new digital technology are much more incremental addition to, for example, enterprise resource planning or the big infrastructure that has been set up already before. So just I wanted to so it's a good we have introduced these points many times already. So that's perhaps I have elements that I would like to insist now more about cases, examples where technology you think that are more dominating humans, and situation where technology are serving humans' empowerment. So I will give you just an example with this illustration of voice-activated picking, which is a technology that has developed a lot in activity of logistics. Sometimes from a worker's point of view, it can be considered as a very reduced autonomy technology that reduces a lot the autonomy of workers. So what do you think about cases? Do you have some cases of technology that really serve empowerment, human empowerment, workers' empowerment? Do you have? Don't you think that the accumulation of virtualization present a risk for workers' competencies? Does it create also a risk that with long-term ability to solve problems, for example? So my question is about this technology that makes our life easier. That's right, you insist on it, but also it makes us more dependent, less trained sometimes for action. And how can we manage that? So how we can manage this the technology in order to maintain humans' capacity?
For me, I think it's a natural evolution, actually, of the innovation. We cannot stop it. No way. And the issue that we are facing is not the technology itself, because one technology is chasing another one, and tomorrow we'll have another one, etc. It was exactly the same problem when the phone had been created in 100 years ago, and all the society was really worrying about how we communicate, and it will change a lot of things. So I think, for me, it's really not an issue of technology. It's a matter of training and learning. Finding the best way to train the workers, to train the people. The skills are changing all the time. We have machines all the time, and we have to train our students and our engineers and the workers on these new concepts, new methodologies, and new machines. So for me, the solution is in the training, either training at the school and the university side, or also training in the company by itself. And I think this is vice versa. It can... if I take also the university, our students, the university is not, let's say, able today, concretely, to train the students and to prepare them for the new skills that are needed by the industry if the university is isolated and if it's not really, let's say, working hand in hand with the company. We were talking this morning about the data, always. We are talking about AI, etc. Do you think that as professor in my university, I can generate all the data behind? No way. I mean, if my student cannot go to the company, understand the problem, bring the data, the data that he needs, and not any data, so we will not be able at the university to make advance in the research, and we will not be able alone to train the next generation. So I think the notion of learning today is a little bit changing. So for me, the company is a place for knowledge also, not only the university. And I think we have to think in the future about the way that the university should work with the industry to make these trainings
Okay.
Just for me, regarding the technology is how you use it in our factory. For example, if you are Amazon and you want to pick up a lot of different kind of packing, and the only way to use a man is because he has a hand and he can use it with a different size and different form of packing. Yeah, that is a way to use the technology. Another way to use the technology for me is in the factory. When I started 20 years ago in the manufacturing world, we spend our time to measure. We spend our time to get the measure. Day or night, and we have very small time to analyze it. Now, the measures are quite immediate, and now we can spend our time to analyze, we can spend our time to develop a team spirit, to work with our team, and to check, okay, how we are going to solve it. In the past, we take the time to how to measure it. Now the measurement with all the captor, we have a different kind of captor. We can install it in our line, in the production line. It's quite easy as you in the picture. And now it's really what I appreciate is we really discover the spirit to work together and to find solution to those analyzing job.
Yeah, the same digital technologies can help reduce the autonomy or increase the autonomy, different the way it has been implemented. So, yeah.
Talking about autonomy, the more agents become autonomous, the more they need coordination rules, because otherwise it's a mess. So look at the road, for instance. If you don't have road rules, everybody can do what he wants, that's or she wants. So we have to learn. If we are becoming more autonomous, then we have to learn new rules that we don't have necessarily today. So that's another issue of social studies, if you like. That's the thing. But there are other issues with this information society that we have built, and we are still building. We are not talking about energy and information. This is I've been in a workshop last year at Super Aero, the School of Aeronautics and Space in France, where there was a lot of criticism on, you know, the pollution caused by air traffic, to the point that the students were discouraged to continue to learn this kind of things, you know, and say, well, but okay, so COVID forced us to work at home, you know, and we learned there was a gigantic lab on the planet for computer support cooperative work. This is extraordinary. We could imagine to do that, but this was, you know, experience that we gained. Problem is, back to energy, how much energy is produced by the servers? You know, we don't talk too much about that. But when you see the evolution of this, you know, global warming cost to servers, by servers, then it's becoming at the same level of aeronautics, in fact. So, is it good? Is it not good? You know, that's the thing, because we are continuing to develop that. You know, that's. I'm not against this. I'm using every day. You know, I'm using internet, and I'm connected to all over the world. You know, I'm still working with my friends at NASA, and I'm if I don't have that, I would not be able to work. That's for sure. But we have to question this relationship between energy and information, because information is not without energy. You know, this is for sure. And the last thing I want to say is the responsibility. Who is accountable in the development of this new technology? Who is the you know, if there is an accident, you know, I've been an accident investigator in aeronautics. So we are looking for who is guilty. Sometimes, you know, I've worked with judges who say, "Who is the guilty guy?" You know, and say, "Well, this one, or no, this one." You know, it's but today it's more diffuse. You know, it's difficult. You know, to so there are some legal issues behind the social issues. You know, this is something that we are creating. Do we know exactly what is going on? I'm not sure. So sorry, I'm usually a very positive guy.
Yes. You have introduced the theme that we are going to develop just after, but just now I would like to present some a video about this issue coming from the Society of Bruno Villa, which is an illustration of the use of technology, and he will comment. It's after.
A ver, siguiente cable.
¿Ya terminaste el cable? ¿Sí o no?
Sí.
Ok.
In this short video, you can see some technology that we try to implement in our workstation. You have here disabled people who need to do some electrical connection. And with the main important point is how to guarantee the quality of the product. This is important for us because the disabled people stop to do some difficult task when they think they will not be able to reach the quality. So they limit themselves very far. And we need to give them some confident point to let them go further and to develop their cognitive access. Here you have the possibility to get direct help, either to choose the right component, to put the right component on the right place, to get the right connection, to see the schematic diagram in front of them. So we help them very in different way, either by video. We have complete this workstation with a cobot and artificial intelligence with a vision, so we can control what they are doing with their hand. We can control what is the end product. So we can provide through this technology the right quality to our customer, and we let them, the people, doing what they say, I cannot do this. Now they can be trained, and like with reality augmented, and they can be trained, they can be confident in themselves, and we can go further with this kind of operators.
Yeah, it's like a supervision relation, but with a very long, repeated help.
Yes.
In order to do the work. So it's a very repeated and in the long-term supervision in a way.
Yeah, it's the disabled people, it's very interesting to work with them. Nevertheless, there is some disadvantage. For example, if one operator go to the toilet, and when he come back, maybe he will not remember what he did before. So maybe you need to train him again, you need to explain him again how to reach the quality level, and so on. And here, with this technology, we manage to go further. We can help the manager around the operator to be more in the how to improve the people, how to go further, than to control. In the past, the manager should control each piece one by one. And now the control is done automatically with some technology. That's why it's very, very interesting.
Okay, thank you. So we have insisted on dynamic of adaptation, of appropriation of technology. So technology itself is not producing the effect. This is the way it is used, the way it is managed, the way it is introduced. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think about, what do you have as experience of the integration of new technology? So this socio-technical dimension of integration of technology. So do you have some illustrations of example? So of the kind of organization we need in order to achieve this socio-technical integration. So a kind of good way of using technology.
Okay, I'm going to talk about aviation again. I'm sorry, but this is my field. So, you know, after my PhD, beginning of the 80s, I started working with the flight test at Airbus. I was working at ONERA, the French Aerospace Research Administration, and I was seconded to Airbus at that time for 4 years. We certified the first 2 crewmen cockpits. We were going from 3 to 2. So we removed the flight engineer, the flight, the guy who was in charge of the systems on board, and we put, everything was automated and put on top of the pilots so they could manage the systems by themselves. So it was a very interesting time because the unions were against, of course, because we were removing one guy. And but we had to prove that it was as safe as with 3 people, you know, which we did, in fact. And the next years afterwards proved that that was true. So that was a good thing. We decreased the number of deaths in the civil aviation on an exponential to 0. And as a matter of fact, 2017 was 0. So we were on the asymptote, if you want. Unfortunately, after that, we had the Boeing 737 accidents and came up again. But so the thing is, at that time, I remember, we had a visit. It was at Airbus. We had visitors from the FAA, the people of the certification in the United States, coming to Toulouse to see what we were doing, and they said, "Well, show us that it's flyable with 1, and we certify the aircraft for 2." Meaning, if there is one of the pilot who is actually lose consciousness, you know, then the other will bring back the aircraft to the ground. So the reason I'm citing this is because today we want to go from 2 to 1. for economical reasons, financial reasons, in fact, which is motivated by that. And so the question is, if I take the same approach as for 3-2, then we have to demonstrate that this fly bulb is 0, you see? But 0 is a discontinuity, in fact. It's no longer an aircraft, it's a drone. And that makes a big difference. You know, then the aircraft has to fly by itself. Of course, some people say, well, but we have the people on the ground, they can manage, but yeah, but it's still a drone. And so the question is, do we have to, you know, this is it's technical and social as well. Do we have to go from 3-2, 2-1, and probably in the next 1-0, or should we go this next step from 0 to 1? In other words, so should we design a drone from the beginning and then look at what is the function of the guy on board? Because I'm sure that in this room, if we vote, very few people will climb will come in an aircraft without anybody responsible for the flight. So in fact, what is the job of these new people? You know, this new thing. So probably it's not going to be a pilot. It's with lots of knowledge on flying, but in charge of the systems, you know. So the reason I cite this this problem is because it's going to become very general in the future. We're gonna design systems that may actually work by themselves, but with people that are there probably to maintain them, to keep them going, you know, and working. But we have to invent these new jobs, and in fact, we have to be open to that. It's you know, this is my take to this issue.
I just wanted to ask you something else. If I question you on this example of plane, and so we have the case of the Boeing 737 MAX, where the pilots were not able to pilot. So my question is much more about the issue of is about the way we design the technology in order to make possible to manage this situation of failure and so on.
So you're opening a can of worms there. It's really a difficult issue, because it's not only a question of technology or competence of people, it's also a question of society, in fact. So, you know, when Boeing, and I don't want to, you know, of course, I mean, I start with Airbus. I want to criticize Boeing because there are lots of very, very good engineers there and very good people. I worked with them when I was at NASA, and this is great. But the thing is, you know what happened with the 737 MAX. The 737 MAX was designed with engines that were supposed to be less polluting the air. In other words, I mean, this is a way to present it, but another way to present it is not to use too much fuel compared to what they had. So in fact, the new engines are bigger. You know, the diameter is bigger than the old ones. And if you look at a 737, which is the same kind of airplane as a A320, the Airbus A320, you will see that the A320 is there, and the 737 is there. So in fact, it's like short on legs, if you want, you know. So when if you put these big engines under the wings, then for some landings you can touch the ground. You know, so it's not good when when an engine touches the ground. You know, especially at this speed. So so that means that that was not possible. One solution could have been to change the landing gear and to put a higher landing gear. Unfortunately, financially speaking, it was rejected solution. But you will see. For me, I think that was the best solution. But anyway, because they lost much more money than the thing is you have to run simulations again. I mean, you could have found that. This is. So in fact, instead, they asked the engineers Boeing's engineer to design a new thing, to put these new engines. And so they put a piece of metal on top of the wings and put the engines
at the front.
In the front.
Yeah.
So it means that during takeoff, you have when the lift, is much faster with when you put the center of gravity is modified. So in fact, the lift is putting the aircraft to the limit of the stall. The stall is this air that pushes the wings, and then you fall. So in fact, because people are smart, of course, they say, well, don't worry, we're going to put a computer that put the aircraft, back to fly. So in fact, but the problem is, all this has to be learned, by the pilots.
Yeah.
So the thing is, so in fact, and some pilots who were not totally, probably, well trained, or I don't know, and everything that is new is always you experience some difficulties or some mistakes, and things. That's normal. This is human, and so in fact these guys, the accidents were due to the fact that the pilots thought that the aircraft didn't want to go up, and they pulled to the and then they stalled. Of course, I mean that's so that's. But the fundamental problem, I think, is actually the financial management. That's we need to better understand what is possible to do and what is not possible to do, because they have lost so much money now that they may regret not to put higher landing gear. This is you see the point. This is important.
Yeah.
And so because I don't want to accuse the pilots or we are human. You can, but you need stability. This is so that's the thing. So
the main problem was that the assistance of the system that assists the pilot was imposing the way
but naturally,
to plan.
because
and,
if
yes,
not, I mean
in case,
the aircraft.
Yes, but in case there was a failure of the system.
There were other things.
And PLM did not achieve to come back and be able to manage the stability.
Right.
But I completely agree with you that.
But I want to take the problem from a systematic way. The systemic way. Sorry. From a system point of view, I think we have to think more about what should be done at design time.
And the management of the project globally. Yeah, from my side, I have just a very small example, smaller than you. Actually, in terms of acceptance and integration, you said gradually accept how to integrate these technologies, etc. We have the example that I think I'm with Abdelhak here, and he worked with me with a company. It's a metro company, and at the beginning, so they funded the project, and just to understand what does it mean, this blockchain and smart contracts, things like that. But it's just curious, to be honest. Just we give you and explain for us and to the engineers. And then they ended up by understanding the notion of smart contract, and we made just small examples on how to use this with the information, the knowledge coming from the ERP, things like that. So we used an open ERP to show them that we are independent from the vendors. It's called Odoo. And we developed just some mechanisms to show them slowly how it works. The notion of smart contract, interpretation of some rules, if this, then you pay this, etc. When they accepted it gradually, It's very important really to go gradually. When they accept it, it took from probably 6 months for them really to accept it and to implement. It's still prototype, but the acceptance is very important. Then now we are talking really about the not just smart contract for small rules, but smart contract for real contract, which is huge for us. It's very complex because here, you have to understand the contract itself. You have to use some AI and natural NLP, natural language program techniques, processing techniques. So it needs a lot of things just to understand how to translate one document contract to that. What I mean is if we go gradually and we leave time to the engineers or to the human in general, it's not easy, but it is doable that people accept technologies and avoid mistakes. I think the problem that I see is sometimes we want to go very fast and then we can have always change the resistance to the change. We know this. I think all the colleagues know what happened when the big PLM or the ERPs in the time have been introduced in the companies, and people refused simply to use that. When we talk about Industry 4.0, so the idea is not to go to 4.0. I'm sure that many companies are at probably 3.1, 3.2, etc. So the idea is not to use everything in the same company. No way. We will not. The company cannot survive, and probably we are just pushing to this technology. Same thing what is happening today. All the people are talking about metaverse. So what does it mean? Shall we really go to that and start really doing everything? And by the way, what we are doing sometimes in our labs and research, it's a push and pull. And it could be nice and dangerous. Nice because we see really to the needs of the society, to the companies, and we try to solve. So we are really pulled, but sometimes we are also pushed by these acronyms and things like that, and it's the same for AI. Probably 90% is reasonable, but 10% is only because all the people are working on AI, so why should not work on AI? I mean, this is how I see it.
Okay, right.
Yeah, I fully agree. Even time is key, because even if in our DNA we try to associate handicap and technology, it's really important to take time to explain. When the first time I speak that I am going to implement in the factory artificial intelligence, all my team think, okay, he's going to do Robocop. So we are very far from the reality. So we need 2 points for me, as you said. First is to take the time to implement, take the time on a small step by small step. And the second one is to go back to the Gamba. I think for me it's on the field that we need to go on. So we need to get a demonstrator. We need to show them what is the interest for everyone. And as soon as we do that, they will integrate the new technology and they will go further, even further than we thought at the beginning.
Yeah, we have to adapt the rhythm of the technology with the rhythm of organizational or individual change. Yeah. So, yeah.
I would like to say something. So what you said, both of you, what you said about the time is very, very important. And in fact, I relate that to maturity. You remember this morning when I gave my presentation, I related tangibility to maturity. And maturity takes time. For a human being, legally speaking, it's 18 years to become mature, become responsible. Sometimes it takes longer. Okay, so we need to allow. Do we have measures for that? This is important, I think, more than ever. We need to better understand what we're doing from that point of view. And again, I mean, I open a can there. It's really, really new stuff. You know, this is important. And when you talk about maturity, you talk about TRL. But in fact, we are not talking about TRLs here. We are talking about HRL and ORL. You know, we are talking about the people. Are they mature to use this technology? Then we have to train them. We have to, you know, how much time it takes. We have to do it. But we need to assess that. We need to make sure that we understand it. And so it's by doing it that we will, we will understand it. Of course, I mean, if you don't know it, it's not one morning you wake up and you figure out. No, it's by doing it.
Yeah, and most of the time it's much more than training. It's most of the time it's doing things that enable.
And we need after that to define this metrics for the other people. You know, once you understand yourself.
Yeah. So last point, and after that we'll open to a large discussion if you want, and we were able to ask that. It's just a point for the conclusion, but we discussed a little bit about that just before. It's about the issue of limitation of natural resources, and we know already that there will be limitation about in the use of energy and the use of natural resources. So my question is it compatible with automation, digitalization progress, or do we need to have a kind of a sobriety in our policy of digitalization? Sometimes digitalization can be help also to better manage these resources, but how can we associate these two issues?
Just to complete your word is before starting to put some new technology like artificial intelligence in the factory, I have to change all my server. I have to change my computer. I have to invest 120,000 euro in the server, a new server, to get more place. This is one of the points. When you speak about the resources, yeah, the consumption of the energy is high. That's a starting point.
Resources. No. What was the question? Yeah, the question is about natural resources and energy resources. Do we need to have a kind of sobriety in our strategy of digitalization? So thinking about how we can just take into account this limitation.
This morning I was listening France Inter, the radio, French radio. And they were talking about smartphones. And they said that 20 years ago, there were 5 rare metals needed for making a smartphone. Today, we need 55 rare metals. So it means that we need to dig into this planet to extract this, and you know, it's amazing. So in fact, so we gain on the information side, not necessarily on the energy and the saving the planet. You know, that's the thing. So that's, you know.
About this limitation. So now the question, if you want to...
No, I think I agree with my colleague. When we talk about the energy, so for me it's which energy? So we are here talking about the PLM, so we have different phases in the life of the product itself. So is it when I create it? Is it when I'm using it? Is it?
Yeah,
and even I know, so when we talk about the energy, we have to see to the whole life cycle of what we are doing. Otherwise, it's a little bit complicated. So when we see digitization means less energy from abroad like this. But when you see really, when you dig to the details, probably it's false. If I take just the example of the blockchain, we are working on this. So the mining consumes huge energy, but that's not visible. But the mining, I know people, they are it's an industry. You know, they are just buying a lot of servers, and they are just putting them there, and they are consuming a huge amount of energy, and you don't see this, you don't know about it. So people don't see it, but it's huge. So that's why I think for me, we have to take the problem in its globality, and even the blockchain. We are talking about the PLM. It's known about all the objects that we are having. I don't know, for example, in the kitchen. So shall we talk about 1 year or 5 years, or you know? So yeah, it's difficult.
It can become a kind of limitation, perhaps a reorientation of the development in order to take it into account. So I open now the the talk to everyone who wants. So who wants to contribute, ask questions, give some comments?
Well, thank you very much for all this discussion. Just coming back to the first question, which was the role of Industry 4.0 and the advantage of Industry 4.0 and of the technology inside Industry 4.0 specifically. I guess that we are all doing from the last 60 years, trying to remove repetitions in data input to avoid these kind of issues. And in this way, clearly, that's an advantage. That should be an advantage to get these new technologies and to make them available. Anyhow, if it was positive, we should be much more efficient now than 20 years or 30 years ago. And when we see that we were already able to go to the moon 30 years ago, it's not the case anymore right now. So there is something which is a little bit strange. So maybe the main problem will be the trigger which make using this technology. If we use technology just for performance, to increase performance, maybe there is a problem. And typically, currently, I guess, industry use technology mainly to make performance. If we think about quality, that's a little bit better, just to improve quality. If we think about well-being at work, it will be much more grit, but that's not the main trigger to use technology. So the point is to know, it's not the problem of technology. Technology is not a problem. It's the how to organize society, how to make it well thinking in order to use it differently and for the good triggers. So that's just my comment about all that.
Yeah, every organization, we have different goal objectives that can be in conflict. So the adoption of technologies as many other decisions in the organization, it's always conflicting between quality, human issues, efficiency issues, and different kind of definition of efficiency. So do we have some other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add some words about the utility or usefulness of the Industry 4.0. If we can go back a little bit to the history, Industry 3.0 was the industry that was a computer-controlled industry or automation industry. That was the 3.0 and 3.1, etc. And at that time, there were a lot of questions about the societal impact of this industry, of introducing the computers in the industry. It will cut job opportunities. It will impact the society because there will be a lot of people fired because of the power that the computers will bring. But at the end, we all witnessed that the impact of computers on the industry is huge, and it boosted the efficiency of the industry at every sector. So today we are asking the same question, is Industry 4.0, which is basically the same industry as before, to which we will add more sensors to get more data, and we add some algorithms to do what we call the smart processing of manufacturing data. So my personal belief is that, yes, Industry 4.0 will have a societal impact, but it will be a positive impact on every aspect of manufacturing, at least. If I take an example of the digital twins in the, just to link it to what we have seen this morning. This morning there was one or two talks about lean manufacturing or layered manufacturing. And we can see, for example, we can imagine a digital twin of a manufacturing process that will gather the data from all components of the manufacturing process. And then we can run simulations, we can optimize the process virtually before launching it in the real life, before testing the process physically on manufacturing system. So yeah, I said at the beginning that we are in between. Actually, we are not. I'm not.
Okay. Order? No intervention? No? Yeah.
Thank you very much for these interesting panels and interesting questions, of course. It's not a question, it's perhaps a remark, and I totally agree with some of you who mentioned society. But perhaps we have a question to tackle all in the PLM conference and all the PLM community is about the value of the society and the consumption of all those technologies. If we remember the beginning of the industry has been created to help society, actually. And if we look the point we are today, we can remark that industry is also perhaps destroying society and the environment. So we have to question again the efficiency or performances or values, how to consume those technologies. Industry have made, it's my opinion, but we can discuss on that. Industry have made a society of consumers. Everybody wants to have a car, or two or three. Everybody wants to have a mobile phone, cell phone, or two or three. Everybody wants to travel by plane. Everybody wants to have the 5G telecommunication. Everybody wants to have this technology. But we can find today that this overconsumption of the technology create impact on the environment of the society. I don't know if you understand me. So what we have to question in the community is how to balance values, new values of consumption, as Guy said. Is that really necessary for everybody to have 1, 2, or 3 cars at home? Is that totally necessary for every industry to have digital twins, IA, IoT, and 5G communication network? Okay, so we have to question that, and perhaps it will go to a better balances between technology evolution, technology progress, and sustainable society with those new values. So that could be a remark we have to question in the community.
Maybe if I can add some point, I think the technology will help us, help Europe to get back the factory. For us, that's an important point, and in this case, we will help the environment because we will have less transportation.
Technology is a good provider, can assist society or some people or some kind of people or industry to progress, but the overconsumption of this technology by everybody has a real impact on the society itself and its environment, of course. We have to moderate the values. I totally agree with the fact that the 5G communication can make that an operation, a cardiac operation could be made remotely. But having the 5G at home for your children to see at the same time different kind of films or Netflix series at the same time because you offer that technology, I think it could be an absurdity. Okay? Having planes could be great, but having planes to travel to New York or Los Angeles and to come back tomorrow, it's an absurdity. Having computer, having cell phone, cars have been perhaps one of the first social network because they have provided the fact that people could narrow themselves, but the overconsumption of cars are now impacting the society and the environment. The overconsumption. Everybody has to consume. Everybody has to have the technology.
If I may follow up on this.
Yes.
Okay, I spent most of my career on automation. And what I observed is that the more you automate, the more you help people doing things better. But what the people do is they do more than before. So in fact, you increase the level of activities. You know, that's the thing. That's one thing. The second is we created what we call instant gratification. If you're not satisfied in the second, then this thing is not valid. You know, this is so we have become more and more short term, and not investigating a future, and goal driven. Instead, we are event driven more and more, and not goal driven. You know, in cognitive science, we study that. It's a kind of course 1.1. So the thing is, we need to better understand how we will organize. I mean, the people will organize their lives in the future. You know, this is important. And something that you said, the well-being. You know, this is important. You know, in aviation, we have worked for the last 40 years. I mean, that's my career span. On three things: safety first, efficiency, equal, and then comfort. Comfort was not so much. Comfort is well-being. I was amazed. I worked on cockpits for a long time, and then lately I started to be interested in passenger seats. We forgot the passengers, to be honest, except first class. But it's so that's, and we put more and more people inside the cabin. You know, this is because of economical reasons. So in fact, this has to deal with the economic model also. I mean, it's not only technology, it's the way you sell the technology, the way you make profit, these kind of things. So we have to address that as well.
Okay, so perhaps I think we need to conclude. Yeah, we need to conclude. So if we want to add some elements to interpolation, we had our conclusion of all the points we have discussed. So I'll let you perhaps.
As I said at the beginning, for me, revolution is a revolution. We need to go on with it. We need to see what are the opportunities inside this revolution. Mm-hmm. Opportunities for our environment, opportunities for production, opportunities for our country, and also opportunities to review how we are going to organize our new society. That will be interesting to see and to follow.
Yeah, I think I may say the same thing, but anyway, I'm from the technology technology side. So for me, the technology is not the problem. Definitely, it's really if we master very well the ways to use that and the processes behind that and training the people in the right way. I think the technology is still technology, and we cannot stop it. It's a natural evolution. It's called innovation, and it will continue like that. I remember when I was a student, I was using, for the industrial drawing, les tables traçantes, etc. So plotters. And when the technology came and the CAD systems came, I was the first one to be worrying about this. So all what I learned disappeared. But finally, I think with the training on the CAD system and this, so now. We can do very, very quickly things instead of doing them in days in that time. So the issue is really, for me, training and considering really the human around the technology, not just thinking the technology itself.
I fully agree. But if this is the conclusion remark, concluding remarks. I would say that we have to anticipate during this century unexpected events more and more than before, because of what we have done in the past from a technological point of view, because the behavior of the people has changed, and it's going to change a lot. And we're going to invent a lot of things. You know, we don't know yet what COVID is about, by the way. And so all these kind of unexpected events will happen, I think. And the consequence of that, especially in academics, we need to think about what we should teach to the young people. You know, I've been interested in complexity theory, and in fact, learning that we have a lot of linear models. You know, so to a y you have one x. Well, we have to learn that we may have two x's. The problem is not to find these two x's. The problem is to find what is the right one. Imagine when you have 10,000. You know, that's what kind of heuristics you're going to use. You know, that's the thing. So in fact, this is about complexity.
So thank you very much. I didn't want to be anti-technology or against all kind of technology. I just wanted to think about the good technology at the good place for a good use in a way. Thinking about what could be a policy of sobriety in technology use, as we now need a policy of sobriety for consuming products, and perhaps we could think about it. So thank you very much, all of us, for this very interesting talk. And no, thank you for the public also. And now I think that we have stopped. Thank you. Bon.